So welcome back, everybody. My name is Paul. I'm a country realtor in Virginia in the western part of the state. And you see some of my other videos. I talk a lot about different kinds of aspects of buying and selling real estate. And I'm a particular fan of homesteading and living off grid kind of and in the country in rural areas. So I've lived in the rural areas for a long time. And although I've traveled a lot, I still enjoy being in a country atmosphere. So I became a realtor here in this area of Virginia. And I want to talk to you today about things that you really need if you're going to homestead. A lot of people, like my children and young people and older people who are retiring, they want to go off the grid, or so-called off the grid, but they want to get out there in the countryside and live a little more relaxed, private lifestyle. But maybe they want to raise some children. And it's a very beautiful thing to do. And I talk a lot about that in many aspects of it. There's things about buying a property and things to look for and so on. But things that you need when you actually finally buy a piece of property, and I've done that a few times in my life, and I've been around people who did, and of course I've sold properties and been involved in the transactions. And a lot of people, for example, they come and look at a property, they say, yeah, I'd love to live out in the country. But then they go out there and realize, well, my goodness, they got to get a bush hog, or they got to hire somebody down the road and who's got a tractor to mow their 5 acres of, because things start growing in the countryside. When you have a property, there's things that happen on a piece of land. And that's why when you drive around the country, you see people, they got all kinds of machines, and they're the farmers, they're resourceful people. So that's a little bit, I'm going to talk about that today. One of the things that you'll definitely want to think about is a tractor. A tractor, I recently sold a property to somebody who I said, look, don't even think about buying these 45 acres in a homestead unless you have some kind of equipment, because things happen. So I suggested getting a tractor. A tractor can be such a valuable thing on a piece of land, because you can get so many implements for it, and there's so many tractors out there. If you can't afford a new one, look for something from the 50s or 60s or 70s or 80s. There are tractors out there that are very reasonably priced, and they, for the amount of money that you pay for them and the time that you have them, you can sell it. I had a 59 tractor, for a Ford tractor, for a few years. I bought it, I got a whole lot of work done with it, I had fun with it, and then I sold it. And considering that I did sell it for less than I paid for it, but the balance was I got a heck of a lot of work done with the tractor, and I had a lot of fun as well. So tractor. Along the line, you'll probably also need something to trim trees, like a weed whacker. I mean, and a chainsaw. Chainsaw and a weed whacker are kind of related, because you can get a chainsaw now that can do a lot of things, and be careful and get a really good one. They take some maintenance and they wear out, and they're kind of dangerous, so you got to be very careful with them. But there's battery powered ones now, and you can get something small and manageable if you don't feel comfortable with a big chainsaw. But you'll need to trim some branches and some firewood and so on. They're extremely useful to have around, and they go together with the weed whacker as well. So those two things together. And some of the weed whackers you can get now, you can put blades on them, because you might be having to cut up to like an inch thick of a little brush or something. So there's a lot of maintenance. Things grow in the country, as you know, so you got a lot of maintenance to do, because even if you buy a property that might need some work already, you'll have to get right away, you'll start having to trim things and maybe make a home site and so on. So again, the basic tools, your basic automotive type tools to fix machines, things like that, you'll need those kind of tools. I have a whole selection of ratchets and wrenches and different kinds of tools, powered and non-powered, saws and clamps and things like that. It's really good to have those kind of things around the homestead, because the whole idea is to get self-sufficient so that you can fix some of the things that you have and make sure that things are operation, and so basically a good set of tools. I mean, you have to select the ones that work for you. I personally also like electrical tools. You want to be able to test some things. You want to be able to see how much a battery charge has. You want to be able to test and see if there's power in your fuse box or whatever. So there's a lot of different uses of tools that come in handy if you just have those tools around. They really help a lot when you have a homestead. They save tons of money, and a lot of times you're out in the woods anyway or out far away, so you don't want to have to drive 20 miles to a Home Depot and pick yourself up a new tool. So it's good to have the things that you need. Another thing is a battery charger. Boy, if you have a lawnmower or any kind of equipment like that, a battery charger really comes in handy, because someday you're going to need to charge a battery. Maybe you forget your keys in your car and lights are on, you got to charge that battery. So a battery charger is a really helpful thing to have around, and you can get some really good ones now excuse me, for about 50 bucks that have like a built-in circuit breaker, and they can do a special bunch of features. Some of them, I have one that can do an engine start and check the battery voltage, and it's quite nice actually. Also an air compressor. An air compressor you can use to paint, you can use it to operate tools that you might need to fix your tractor, and all kinds of things like that. So an air compressor is a really good thing to have around in your homestead. Along with that, I forgot to mention simple things like extension cords. They come in really handy. Also a water pump. I have a 12-volt water pump that I can hook up to any battery, like a car battery, and I can pump water really fast. I have a rain collection system and a water pump that you can excuse me, take around. I go up to a stream nearby and I put the water pump hooked up a battery, and I fill up gallons of beautiful water right from the stream. And I love that because it's just like so self-sufficient. I see people now out in the countryside, they have a big huge bin of water in their back of their truck, and they have a pump or something, and they pull up to a stream, and there's lots of them in Virginia, and they just fill up their 100 gallons of water, 200 gallons or something, and go on their way. So having a water pump is really important. There's many versions. The kind I have is just a really simple thing, and you hook up garden hose to it and you put it in the source, and then you can just run it through and pump gallons of water right out. And you can get different kinds of filters too. It's so easy to get filters now to filter your water. You can go through many stages. You get the sediment out, and then you go through. I use a Brita filter, and I just pour that spring water or that stream water into my Brita filter, and it comes out a really beautiful, tasty, clean water that I use mostly for boiling anyway, and coffee and so on. So a water pump. There are things, the accessory tools that you want, like implements for your tractor. If you can't afford a big tractor, at least get something like I have, for example, a 20 horsepower old John Deere mower. It's about 20 years old, 2 cylinders, 20 horsepower. It has a lot of power. I use it to mow about 1.5 acres, and I use it to pull a trailer around with it. Just a little. You can haul things around your property with a little trailer. It's not very expensive. I mean, when it comes down to it, for $500 or $600, you can have a pretty good mower and a small tractor that you can get implements for, some of the smaller implements, and you can get it used and so on. And you can get like a trailer. I find a trailer behind my mower is very handy, because you can move the firewood or tools around your property very easily. Another thing I was going to suggest is an ATV. If you have an ATV, it can be really handy, because if you got to walk across acres of land, yeah, you could walk. You just get there a lot slower. So I like to have an ATV. Like when I explore a property, for example, I might bring an ATV and say, well, okay, I got to explore this 50 acres, and I'm not going to see every inch of it, but I'm sure not going to be doing much by walking. I got to take a little ATV around and explore a little bit. So those kind of tools, and you don't have to get a new one, because there's a lot of things out there used that you can get, and you can get some good work done on your property with the various kinds of tools, and they're not very expensive. For example, learn how to fix them. Again, having your own tools, having some electrical knowledge and so on, you can fix your mower or your chainsaw or whatever, and you can be very independent that way. So I think that's covered a few things that are really important to buy when you have land and think about, because as soon as you get that piece of land, you're going to want to just do something with it. you're going to want to start trimming and cutting and growing and making fences. Also, fences is another really important thing, because I read this gentleman, he was a specialist in the area, and he said don't even think about getting animals until you get some fences, because the animals will just run. So fences are really important out, if you're, even if for the chickens, because raccoons and things love to eat chickens, and if you're going to have chickens and animals out in the woods, out in the countryside, then just be expecting that it's going to attract a certain amount of attention from the wildlife and so on. I think I've covered pretty much a good selection of things that you must have when you think about having a homestead. Just think about being resourceful, self-reliant, all the things that you might need. The knowledge is really important. There's a lot of videos online that tell you and help you how to understand how to operate a property, because boy, you can get a large property like what I sold just late last year, 45 acres in a 1908 house, and you get there like, okay, now she owns it. Okay, whoa, now I gotta get a tractor. And she got a tractor, and she got the right tools. And also, it takes some time to explore. You need to learn a lot about the topography and the satellite and how things are laid out and the steepness of an angle. If you want to learn, maybe you want to make a pond, so you need to learn about how to do that, and so on. So any kind of tools that you could use and any kind of knowledge that would be helpful, as soon as you buy land or property for homesteading, make sure that you have something to follow through with all that knowledge and tools, so that when you finally do get your dream property, that you're ready to roll and you have some knowledge. And if you can't do something yourself, you know who to call, the kind of people, the kind of machines. You can rent machines sometimes if you need to get something done. Maybe you don't want to rent a whole tractor, maybe you want to buy one instead, but you can rent a paint spraying machine or something like that. So I appreciate everybody, the positive feedback, and thanks again for listening. Like and share. I'm a professional real estate agent in the state of Virginia. I'm licensed. I work for a company named Lions Team Realty in Moneta, and we service a wide variety of clients in the recreational, even up to commercial, and there's quite a group of us there to cover quite a few counties in Virginia. So I'm a great real estate scout. I can look for property. I can check something out that you saw online. I go take a look at it personally and find out more about it and so on. So thanks again for listening, and please like and share. I hope to see you in one of my other videos.